Risk of Rain 2 dropped its first DLC this past week, and it was an immediate day one purchase for me because I'm a big fan of the base game. The DLC adds 2 new survivors, new items, new biomes, new enemies, and a new separate game mode as well. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about the 2 new survivors or playable characters. The first survivor is the Railgunner, which is a risk-reward style class that rewards high accuracy with high damage. The character's main playstyle uses a sniper rifle that deals bonus damage if you hit enemy weak spots. After each shot, you can also reload faster if you use the active reload system and time your reload well. Your special ability also charges up a powerful AoE blast with a long post-fire cooldown. I haven't tried all of the alternative loadouts yet, but overall, this class is incredibly fun. It feels incredibly satisfying and powerful to hit all of your snipes, but it's fairly balanced with drawbacks or risk mechanics, namely longer cooldowns for charged shots, or if you actually mess up your reload, it's a lot slower. I think it's probably better in multiplayer than in solo, but regardless, this class is a great addition to the game. The second survivor is the Void Fiend, who has a fairly straightforward loadout, but utilizes a novel stance-changing mechanic. Basically, as you play the game, you manage a corruption meter. It fills up slowly, automatically, and it fills up faster with kills or when you take damage. You can also manage your corruption by lowering it with your special ability. Once you have full corruption, you automatically change forms into a more powerful version of your base moveset. Managing your corruption is the core mechanic of this hero, and the corrupted form is super powerful, so it's fun to transform and wreak havoc on bosses or just mobs of enemies around you. Honestly, when I first unlocked this hero, I was kind of underwhelmed, because this base moveset is just a little bland. But as I played more and more, I really enjoyed managing the corruption levels, and transforming at the right time in fights feels really great. He's also a more balanced hero than the Railgunner, so he's become one of my new go-tos for solo runs. Also, for some reason, this character has no alternative loadouts, which I guess is fine, but it's a little strange to me. Together, these new survivors add new options and good gameplay variety to the game. And while I have not decided where exactly I would rank them, they're both definitely in the top half of survivors for me in terms of which ones I find most fun. Now let's talk about the other new DLC gameplay elements. The game adds new items in the form of 20 new regular items and equipment, as well as 14 new void items. I think the normal items are just good variety. Some are pretty powerful, some are pretty weak or more niche, but as a whole, it's just good gameplay elements to work with and build craft with. These new items do make the loot pool larger and therefore more diluted, but I haven't had any real complaints with that so far. Maybe that'll change with more game time. The bigger change is the addition of void items, which are corrupted versions of some existing items. Some feel like strict upgrades, whereas others feel like more shifts in terms of functionality. As 2 examples of that, the Weeping Fungus is a change from the Bustling Fungus, which makes you heal while sprinting instead of healing while standing still. And the Polyloot is a corrupted Ukulele, which turns it from an AoE damage item to one that deals more single target damage. These items are generally fun to work with, and they create some new interesting build possibilities. I almost always pick these items up, but there are some build or survivor-specific reasons why you wouldn't want to, where it might clash with what you want to do. There were also a couple lunar items added with this DLC, but to be honest, I usually avoid those, so I have no opinion on them. Next, the game adds some new biomes or stages to the game, as well as new enemies for these new and older stages, and a couple new elite enemy types as well. Like the new regular items, and really a lot of this DLC, these additions feel like the same quality as the rest of the game, and they just add more variety run to run. There were only 1 or 2 enemies that I found to be annoying, so collectively, again, it just helps each run feel different. As an aside, if you're playing with a friend who has the DLC and you don't have it, both players can experience the DLC content, the enemies, items, and areas, with some limitations on achievements and unlocks. The game also adds a new alternative final boss. I think it's a nice addition to have an alternative to the current final boss, but I did feel this new boss fight to be fairly straightforward mechanically. It's just kind of a bullet sponge that has one difficult gimmick. We'll see how I feel about it after a few more tries, but as of right now, this new final boss to me felt only okay. The DLC also adds void seeds, which are random events you can find on a given run. When a seed appears, it spawns void corrupted enemies, which are basically just slightly stronger versions of normal enemies. And when you clear out all these enemies, you can access a void area, which will have chests and stuff inside of them, with a high chance of having 1 or more void item chests, allowing you to get access to this powerful, corrupting void items. I like these events as a way to add more variety in the run, and give a chance for more items and loot. I did occasionally have trouble killing all of the void enemies in order to clear the seed and access the loot, because each void corrupted enemy is corrupted by a little void bug that runs off after you kill the main enemy. You have to kill that bug, or can corrupt other enemies and make them void enemies as well. Sometimes though, one of these bugs would just hide and run away forever, so you never complete the Void Seed event. Alternatively, if you're not careful, these void bugs can also corrupt bosses and make them much harder versions of themselves, which can ruin an otherwise good run. Still, I think the Void Seeds are generally a good addition to the game that just makes runs more interesting and unique. Also, while a lot of these have been patched by now, I did have a couple bugs when I first played on launch day. I haven't really had problems in the last few days though, and developers have been pretty active with updates since the DLC's release. So collectively, most of this DLC gameplay content just adds more variety to the game and gives you some more build crafting options. I really enjoyed the fresh life this brought into Risk of Rain 2, and I've been playing this game a couple hours each day since I grabbed that DLC. But at the same time, this DLC hasn't fundamentally changed the way the game plays. And on that note, let's talk about the new game mode that was added. Finally, the game adds a new wave-based game mode. Basically, you'll be defending a small area in void versions of existing maps where enemies spawn in waves, and you get a reward at the end of each wave that lets you choose between one of 3 items. Each 5th wave is a boss wave with more harder enemies, and occasionally bosses from the base game as well. Every 5th wave, the defending zone moves around the map, and every 10th wave, you change maps, both of which add a little more geographic variety to the runs. If you've played the Void Fields event in the main game, this game mode feels like a better, more fleshed out version of that process. I actually like this game mode a lot more than I was originally expecting. In some ways, it's just a more streamlined Risk of Rain experience. You don't have to hunt through maps to find the exit, you don't have to manage difficulty scaling, everything just comes at you to fight you in more standardized waves. Because of how this game mode gives you items and gives you more choice, it's a lot easier and quicker to get fun, stronger builds, and it feels like you can counter RNG better because of that choice of item at the end of each wave. Also, in multiplayer, everyone respawns at the end of each wave, so it allows you to get back to the game quicker than the standard game mode. This makes this game mode a good option for those people that have that one friend who just always dies, because now they can respawn a lot more often and get back into the gameplay. In terms of downsides, this game mode is just more limited and straightforward. You don't have that fun exploration mechanic, you don't move around as much, so it makes some characters like the loader feel more limited. Because of that, it's just not as exciting over an extended period of time as the main game mode is. Also, there are some smaller logistical frustrations I had with it. Sometimes enemies spawn in areas that are hidden behind walls, so you can't really kill them easily without leaving your bubble and taking damage. The game mode does have some mechanics to manage this. So for example, the zone will eventually shrink and kill those hidden enemies, but it just slows down the gameplay. As a whole, this new game mode is a great secondary option. It might also really appeal to those players that don't like that scaling aspect of the main game or hated those slow respawns in multiplayer. It's more streamlined in certain good ways, but that does also limit its replayability. So what's my verdict on this DLC? This new DLC, Survivors of the Void, is a great breath of fresh air for Risk of Rain 2 that has made me fall in love with this game again. It fleshes out just about every single core gameplay mechanic and adds new mechanics to navigate as well with the Void items. At the same time, the DLC doesn't fundamentally change the way the core gameplay works. That means that if you like Risk of Rain 2 and want more of it, you'll probably really enjoy this DLC as well. However, if there are elements of Risk of Rain 2 that you don't enjoy, those elements are also still present with the DLC. So for example, it is still super easy to die instantly, early item RNG is still important, and the scaling mechanic hasn't changed. If you're looking for this DLC to address things you don't like about the main game, it probably won't do that, with the exception of a couple things like slow respawns that are addressed in that alternative game mode. Still, if you like Risk of Rain 2, I would absolutely recommend picking up the DLC. It's on sale right now for $10 until March 8th, and after that, it will go back up to $15. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to all of our channel members who help make videos like this one possible. Please like this video to help me out in the algorithm, and thanks for watching.